Tell you, it's great.
Well, I didn't mean to usurp time here, but I was like, I want to talk to Jane.
I'm glad you did. Thank you. Everybody ready for the holidays?
Sort of.
Oh,
I think you can, right?
And a little ways to go.
Hi, John. Hi, Walter.
Good evening, everyone.
hey, everybody.
Hi. I need to go get a few materials. I'll be right back.
Looks like Jan's got her Christmas sweater on.
I should have done that, you know.
I know.
I should have put on one of my Christmas ties.
I've got a sweater that says Santa Paws, and it's got a little kitty cat with a Christmas hat on. I need to
I
go
won't
put
tell
that on.
anybody if you don't.
I'll be right back. I got to go put that on.
Oh, God.
No, I'm
You know,
kidding.
Gary, it's a very short window of time that you have to wear your Christmas ties. So
I know.
Yeah.
You know, being retired, I don't go to those kind of things. It's pretty upsetting. I'm going to try and put it on tomorrow, or I got 3 or 4 of them, you know.
Oh, Lord.
So it's a fun time of year.
absolutely.
All right, but let's just give everybody another 30 seconds or so, and I think Jan's on her way back. I tell you what, Jose, why don't you go ahead and put the agenda up on the screen?
I'd be happy to. Give me one moment. See if I can still do this. So hopefully everyone can see my screen.
All right, Jose, thank you for putting that up. Just wanted to check, does anyone have any changes for the agenda for the meeting tonight? And well, let me just say, first of all, welcome everybody. Notice this is meeting number 40 of this task force tonight. So does anyone have any questions, changes to the agenda they want to put forward?
Well, I'll just say that I hope we make some progress here in general, but also we have a football game starting right now.
Yeah, Gary, let's see if we can
I thought they
make the
canceled
second
it.
half at least.
No, it's on. It got moved until this exact time.
It's on?
No.
It's
The
on.
Washington football team is on?
Yeah.
So is that a motion to
Okay.
move straight to a vote to approve? Both the sections? Is that what I heard?
That would be in order.
Did you hear that?
All right, thank you, Gary. Let's see if we could move forward and make some progress tonight. Let's start first of all, Jose. Go over the upcoming dates, and I think for this purpose, I think maybe it might make sense to also talk about the topics for those dates, and not wait until the end of the meeting to come back to that. So, Jose, do you want to go over that?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. Yeah, so task force meeting dates. So it looks like with the previous agenda, I did share Monday, January 10th and Tuesday, January 18th, because MLK Jr. Holiday is Monday the 17th. And last night, in talking with the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee, they were very friendly enough to let us let the task force meet on Monday, January 24th. They typically meet on the third Monday, and because of the holiday, they kind of looked at the 24th, as well as Monday, January 31st. And Supervisor, I know you said good to talk about topics, but additionally, we did get a request from one of the task force members about maybe sending out, if we do put up topics at these meetings, getting those materials out, maybe more than just the weekend before. So I guess I know we had talked at that last or previous meeting, having housing, earned density, land use, but I know Michelle also mentioned, maybe an equity read or review of other topic areas coming back towards the end, either after or before land use. So maybe there's a need for having some topics come more than once on these dates prior to a vote. So yeah, I know we had housing scheduled for January 10th, but I think it may be that they could come on the 18th as well in order to have some staff also attend that call. Supervisor, you're muted.
Thank you. So Jose, so that would which topic then would we or topics would we address on the 10th?
That's a good question. I mean, I haven't talked with the topic leads, but maybe that's an opportunity for maybe earned density to come back. I know the land use group is working through some of their comments, but I didn't know if they would be ready by the 10th to at least have a discussion.
Well,
or-
if I could just respond, Jose,
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
I do think that much of the content in the land use chapter is pretty close to being ready to go, but we are waiting to see what the result of earned density, affordable housing, equity, a lot of these other chapters really do play into the content that land use is going to be presenting. So we want to make sure that what we submit as final is going to be inclusive of these considerations in these other chapters. So if I could request, I would frankly like land use to be the last chapter to be adopted before we adopt the entire plan. But that would be my little request.
Folks
Just because
have,
so much is predicated. Yeah.
anyone else have
It's on
thoughts
the
on that?
31st.
That's absolutely accurate as far as I'm concerned. And tonight we will likely not finish community health. So that could be lap over onto the 10th. So Jose, why were you saying housing would be on the 18th?
So I know housing staff was not available on January 10th due to another meeting conflict, and they would like to also attend.
Okay.
So I had reached out to David Vanel. I don't think he's on, and asked if it would be okay to maybe the housing coming back on the 18th.
Could we consider, if housing is a principal item and it's, a major one left here, that we might change the date from the 10th to the 11th? If, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but that might help us maybe not get through housing on the 10th or 11th, but move it forward so it could, maybe be finalized by the 18th.
So you're suggesting Tuesday, January the 11th?
If that works with the housing staff, I would think that would help us, move along. Because
Well,
it's-
that would frankly give me an opportunity to attend the second community meeting that Wheelock is hosting on the Fannie Mae property with the neighbors that are impacted, because that is the date that they are planning that second community outreach,
And
The
Lynn,
10th?
that's on the 10th.
the 10th. Mhm.
So what about the 18th? Can't we just move it to the 18th instead of the 11th?
Well, I know, Jan, it's a problem for you, but I think it helps us move housing along because it may take us a couple of meetings because it's one of the major ones hanging here. David's kind of done this almost practically on his own.
Yeah, I agree. The sooner it's on the agenda, the better, so we can start talking about it. I'd rather have a tweaked meeting schedule than keep pushing things back, because I think I keep worrying about what's going to fall off the list if we keep dragging this on.
Right.
So
So
does
you're
anyone know of
talking
any
about-
conflicts on the 11th?
Not sure.
I don't have any. I
What
know.
about you, Walter?
No, the only thing we've got is Hunter Mill Land Use Committee is meeting on the 10th or on the 11th. And, but Jose and I could split up. You can cover that. I can do this with Lisa's help. Okay. All right. Let's do other
Could I
thoughts.
just add one thing. Lynn asked that land use be held to the end.
Yeah.
You know, it maybe that's okay for a final vote, but I hope it's not held back. That were a lot of issues raised before, and if the draft is held back and then sort of dropped at the end, I don't think there'll be enough time for a thoughtful consideration. And
Well, yep,
so,
sorry, Bill, if I could just add,
Sure.
the land use committee, the working group, did meet, and there is a red line right now that I could send out, but it is not inclusive of the discussions that pertain to earned density, nor equity, nor affordable housing. But we did take every single comment that was received by email by you, by Mr. Jennings, Richard Fernicola, Mark Looney, and we have those in a separate table that we will be sending out to the task force for review. But you know, we are making sure that our initial responses are still appropriate, and we will be getting those comments out to you all. But I think holding the land use approval makes a lot of sense.
the approval is fine, but I just don't want the
Right.
discussion to hang out until a final
Right.
meeting. And, oh, here it is. Everybody's frustrated and it just goes through. And
No.
density is something we've still never even seen. So there's a
Well,
lot.
that's the point of
Lots
having it
still out
first
there.
before land use.
That's fine. I just
So
want
I'm
enough time
hearing-
to talk about them. That's all.
So I'm hearing if we do January 11th and try to do housing on that day, any wrap up of community health, if that's necessary. And also I've heard earned density as something that needs to go maybe sooner rather than later. So we have at least 2, maybe 3 items. Maybe earned density could go to the 18th if we don't have time on the 11th. And Len, thank you for offering to send that around. I even if it's in draft form, you know, preliminary, I think it would be helpful. I think for the task force to digest that over the holidays, if possible.
Oh, well, if I'm sending a red line, it's going to be a lot to digest. So tell your turkey or your chicken or your beef tenderloin to get out of the way.
Well, and Lynn, there's one more read through that we probably need to make before just sending that out, but Bill's got a good point. Just probably one more, you know, double check would be good before sending it out.
And yeah, thank you,
Okay,
Gary.
so folks, what I have right now is I have on the Tuesday, January 11th, the Community Health, Housing and Equity. On Tuesday, January 18th, earned density, nothing on the 24th. And on Monday, January 31st, I have land use. Is that correct? Want to add anything on the 24th?
I mean, Michelle's not, I don't see her on here yet. Maybe she's here, so I'm jumping in when maybe I shouldn't, but I don't know that we were going to do equity on, you know, I thought she wanted to, you know, maybe wait for one more meeting in there.
Gary, over the holidays, we were going to look at all the chapters
Okay,
and kind of make sure that equity has been interwoven in all of the chapters. So the more that we get approved, the more we'll have to look through and make sure equity. But once we do that piece, then equity and the introduction can go together
so you said you're okay
in
with
one meeting, and we can decide if equity is separate or as part of the intro. And
Gotcha.
we'll be able to describe, you know, this is where we're finding equity, you know, in other chapters at that meeting.
Gotcha.
So the more we're hoping that community health can, first draft go to staff or into Jose's master document by the end of this meeting. Obviously, there's going to be edits, but we would like it to, be approved tonight to be included in chapters that have been reviewed by the task force and might have minor edits, but it's almost ready.
All right, Jennifer, thank you. Thank you for that. So.
And then
so that-
environment. We
And the
haven't talked about-
environment, right.
We haven't talked about that chapter and when it's going.
Well, that's a good point.
Point. Yeah. Good point. So we may need to work that in either on the 11th or the 18th. And the other caution I would have, we'll have to make sure the housing staff is available on the 11th as well. We know they're not available on the 10th, but we might need to move two of those around. Jose can communicate with the task force. Jose, could you see what you can find out tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll try reaching out and see their availability. Yeah, happy to do that.
Okay, any other thoughts on scheduling those topics in meeting dates?
Supervisor, this is Mike Jennings, and I was the one who sent an email earlier about just as a request to possibly get drafts out as early as possible. I was proposing a week, and then with a strict 3-day deadline for comments to come back, so that the people drafting it could see those comments, and then we would be ready to discuss something at a meeting, because it's just it's hard, and I don't think fair to be voting on things we just saw, less than a day or two before. It's just
Okay.
not right either.
All right, thank you, Mike. Does anyone have any concern about that? Basically, the idea would be we would get drafts around a week ahead of these topic dates. And then, Mike, you said a 3-day deadline after it goes around, or 3 days before the meeting?
3 days after it's sent out by the people writing it.
Can we
Okay.
do 4 days?
So the document goes out 7 days before. You get 3 days to review it, and then 4 days for the drafters to re-edit. That seems a little wild there in time coordination. I agree that giving time for folks to review things makes sense, but we want to give the reviewers time to evaluate the comments, but that's a big gap, and I recognize that everyone on here is doing this as a voluntary effort, with the exceptions of some. So
Hey
I
guys,
agree
it's
with
voluntary.
Dan, we gotta give a little more
I
time.
would just I want to push back on that. This concept that this is not voluntary for some people is false. There are people, the people whose jobs may align with what we're talking about. There may be that, but they're not getting paid extra to do this, to be away from their
I
families.
was referring to the supervisor, actually,
Okay.
as the specific person, and Jose and county staff, not any one individual. So
Okay,
it wasn't
because that has
targeted
been
at
raised
anybody.
before. Okay, fair enough.
Well, then, Walter, I think we should then have something about voting on these things during these meetings too, because
I
the
agree.
meetings get waylaid into just people providing anecdotes, but not actual revisions. And I think we should start trying to have some level of actually bring up some initial vote, because we're talking about these like we're initially approving them. We're not saying that this is the
Right.
comp plan, but we want to get them to your staff so they can actually review them.
Right.
And actually get feedback, because I think a lot of us recognize that some of we're going to have to reconcile with some of those differences too.
Right.
So we need to
Yes, I
start
agree with
aligning
you,
that.
Chris. And there are individuals on the task force that, I can speak for land use, that the land use working group has given great consideration to the comments, and the land use working group has made a determination that something is or is not going to be accepted into the chapter, but the individuals just keep coming back and trying to bully this text into the chapter. And there's got to be some way to just say, we've got to stop this, and let's let the chapter leads be responsible for bringing that chapter forward to the best of for the community to review. So
Lynn, let me, since I may be one of the people you're um, reacting
who's
to.
talking?
This
Oh,
is
Bill.
Penninger.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, well, I mean, keep in mind that there are long gaps between the time we've seen drafts. So if you see repeated comments, it's because we went for a long time without hearing anything at all. And so don't be surprised if people repeat things. And second, keep in mind, you have a small committee. This is a much bigger task force. And if people disagree with you, they have a right to continue to disagree with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, then keep that in
But
mind.
are we going to have to vote on line by line? I mean,
We have
really,
in some
we'll
sections.
be going a month
We
to get
have
land
done that in
use done.
right. We've done that in some sections. So anyway,
I was suggesting that we just agree to a means to which we can start moving these forward. I recognize fully that folks won't always agree on every section. Michelle was very responsive to some of my comments in community health, but I also acknowledge she did not accept them all. But I think just having a method in which we can keep moving these to staff is what I'm prioritizing, so that because
And I would agree with that. You know, sometimes we end up going in circles and we have to have some method of just moving along here.
Yeah. Yeah, Gary, thank you for noting that. And also, Chris, I think the process exists. It's the interim approvals. So I think it's just a matter of task force leads bringing, you know, the document to the group and then, you know, discussing it and then making an amendments and then voting on it. So I know there are some areas where there is some pretty strong disagreement. And what I would suggest is at the end of the process, and I'm not saying for these interim approvals, but when we get to final approval after we get staff written comment, that, you know, if there are people that, you know, want to write up a dissent, you know, or a minority recommendation, that's perfectly fine. I mean, that been around task forces where that's happened, and maybe that can help move things along at the appropriate time.
You're doing a good job, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everybody, for frankly, you know, moving this forward. I know there is a lot of work that's underway and that people have been putting a lot of time and effort into this. So let's do this. I think Mike's suggestion about getting the drafts of the different sections out a week before discussion, I think is a good one.
Hey, wait a minute, Walter,
Yes.
the week before is today. I mean, it's not today, but because we're having a holiday, but it's going to be on the 10th or 11th. So you're going to have your draft out for the next session at the meeting. So how about 5 days before? You know,
Yeah.
I just have to be quick because people who want to make the judgments aren't actually sometimes the ones doing the work. It's easy to sit here and flap your jaws about things you don't like, but are you spending your freaking life writing the stuff, researching like a lot of people on this task force are? Or are you the commentator at the last minute who wants things when they want it and they're mad when their suggestions aren't taken? I mean, we're related to a lot of that.
Well, let's not, come on, Tammy, let's, you know, I'm sorry about that your halo is getting burnished, but
policeman.
Mike, what do you think about 5 days?
That's fine. Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's do 5 days. And I think that is hopefully enough time for people to review it, and we can come back and revisit. And actually, I would just encourage everybody to review it and get feedback to the drafter as soon as possible, you know, after it gets sent out at least 5 days in advance. And if it's ready sooner, you know, even if it's 7 days or 9 days, that's okay too. But 5 days should be hopefully enough time for everyone to review it, to get feedback back, and frankly, be ready to move forward at the meeting on one way or the other. Now, there are some topics like land use is I don't think we're going to get through land use in one meeting. I mean, that's going to be at least a couple of meetings. My assumption is, even with getting, even a working draft out soon, and and then another draft out for discussion in January. So we do have. And let me just bring this up right now. One of the other things I'm looking at is schedule. Tammy, I know you've been bringing this up. I did talk with county staff about the 3 months they need after task force approval. They are looking at that. One of the other things they're also looking at is other things they might do in that 3-month period to help move things along so that everything isn't necessarily done sequentially once we get to public outreach and then, of course, public hearing at the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. So staff is going to come back, and that'll be on now the January 11th meeting and address those issues.
Get over it.
Ooh. All right.
May I just have a thought, though?
Yes, please,
And
Gary.
I know we're going to get into this a second with John Mooney, but the, coordinated relationship with the transportation staff has really made a big difference. And if we could have that, across the board, everybody's being cooperative in the county. I just think a close relationship as we go through this really helps. And
Yeah, thank you very much, Gary. And I know, even with staff, there may be differences of opinion, but we have a professional staff that basically their job right now is to support this task force and to basically help this task force move forward. So I do encourage everybody to make use of that. So thank you, Gary. I think it does make a huge difference to have that kind of collaboration. So, other thoughts, questions on coming topics? The request for 5-day advance drafts to be shared with the task force, and anything else in the coming dates and process. Anything else right now? All right. Okay, thank you. We moved a little bit of what we were going to talk about later in the agenda up to here, but I think that's very helpful. We've got 2 big items to try to get through tonight. And the first one is transportation. Gary, as you said, I know you and John and county staff, there've been a lot of work on this. And let's see if we can move through this. It's 7:27. So John Mooney, how much time do you think, tonight to come to a vote on this?
I optimistically budgeted 45 minutes. We'll see.
All right. Well, 8:15 comes around. That's 47 minutes. So see what you can do.
We'll see.
All right. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. So the Transportation Drafting Committee, which is Gary and Bill Penniman and myself, were, as Gary said, enormously helped over the last, the whole course of this, but especially over the last 3 or 4 months by Fairfax County staff. So I want to acknowledge that and especially thank Mike Garcia and most especially in this last couple months, John King, who's become almost a pen pal. So if you could, Jose, please put up the proposed process. Thank you. So this is what I propose we do tonight. We will deal only with substantive issues, not format and style. And I want to tell you, we did set for ourselves a minimum of 5 days reading time for you. And it shows that there are format mistakes and a couple things that I'll point out that we didn't true up comments in one place with another, but it doesn't change the substance. But we know we need to clean up style and format. So I'd like to, so then we'll review the chapter using the clean version and I hope everybody used the suggestion to note that the marginal comments give you notice to what changes we made. And the changes we made, again, are based on the votes of the task force on the decision matrix. And secondly, the 4 pages of comments that we got from Fairfax County staff, Fairfax County Department of Transportation staff. So those are noted, and any other changes are noted in the comments. So that's where we wanted to direct your attention. Secondly, we'll review the grid of streets. So Mike Jennings kindly put out a comparison of John Carter's proposed revised grid and what the other grids are. We're not going to go over that in detail. I only want to know if there are any substantive problems. And then thirdly, we'll do a very brief review of longer comments received from community health. And I believe we may have resolved all those. That can be verified by Michelle. And I want to go over comments that I believe everyone received from Rick Hamilton, again, briefly. Then fourthly, any comments from non-task force members who are here, and then a vote, okay? So Jose, if you could please put up the clean version of the chapter. Okay, so the way I want to begin is asking if there are any concerns, major concerns, and I'm going to start off with a couple that Michelle brought to my attention on page 3. She notes that the bullet on page 3 under Sunrise Valley Drive, that the language there is not consistent with the table on page the table on page 6, where the various lanes are discussed. Let's see, where are we here? Yes. Pardon me, sidewalks. So whenever there is conflict, dear friends, the table is the correct and latest version, okay? And I did not true up the text on page 3. So the true version of Sunrise Valley Drive is it will be a divided road with cycle tracks and separate sidewalk on the north side, also with a continuous sidewalk on the south side. And again, I referred to the comments that we received, and I copied you on those, the 4 pages of comments we received from Fairfax County DOT. That's one thing. The second thing has to deal with on page 5, let me see here, with Reston Parkway in the table a little farther down, I believe. But there we are. Yeah, there we are. Let's see where we are here. This is what we are recommending. This was sustained by a vote of the task force when we did our decision issue matrix, but I want to point out that Michelle is concerned that this is that this would reduce the green area for affordable housing units there. But it was the decision of the task force when we went through our decision issues. So those are the only 2 I would point out now. Let me now open the floor to anybody else who has concerns, and again, concerns other than Rick Hamilton has about his list. I'll handle that separately, as I will handle the list that we got from the Community Health Committee. So does anybody else have any comments on the draft chapter?
I had a question.
Yes.
Hi, John. Sorry, my hand
Hi,
was
Lynn.
raised
Hi,
in
Lynn.
the
Hi, Lynn.
chat.
Hi, Lynn.
My question is at the bottom of page 5 for the minor arterial type A. It says 1, add morel trees in the median. I'm
Yes,
not familiar
I
with
love
morels.
I'm going to fire my typist. It's more trees.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
But a morel mushroom farm is a good idea. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I would like to make a suggestion on the expansion of the Reston Parkway lanes that community engagement should be a part of that process, and specifically with the adjacent neighbors. That may help with some of it. I don't want to, create a problem where there isn't one, but I do think that outreach, extensive outreach and engagement with the adjacent neighbors should occur before anything occurs.
Okay. So just to review, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Todd, and then I'll
Let
comment.
me review the history real quick. So that provision was contained in the 2014-15 comprehensive plan, and then was taken up into the 2018 Reston Network Analysis final report. So that does not prove that it's right, but it has history. And the funding for that widening based on the Fairfax County DOT Reston funding plan draft cash flow shows that money being invested in it from 2029 to 2034. So Michelle's recommendation is that we should put a community consultation provision in that.
Well, I will say we voted on this. Again, we went through it with Mike Garcia. Actually, we did this really twice when you really come down to it. And I don't think we need to make changes. They're going to do the right things relating to that. And Mike has talked about that, and we had a vote on it. So I think obviously there needs to be some engagement with them. And I'm sure the county notes that sensitivity, as Mike pointed out before, and we'll make sure that is done. Plus, how they're designing that in relation to the area I think you're talking about, Michelle. They're going to make sure they go in that direction, but we have been over this a few times.
Thank you, Gary. Let me quickly ask Mike Garcia or John King if you have any comments about adding a community consultation process here.
This is Mike. I'll address it since I guess I'm being called on. We're going to do it no matter what. We're going to do community engagement. It's what we do with our projects. We don't build or design or install or anything without having the proper community outreach. So whether you kind of put it in a plan or you don't, it's going to be a matter of fact that we will do that.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, let's take a quick vote. Who wants to add a community consultation process to this item? Could you count hands, please, Jose?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, John. So everyone that wants to put their hand up, I'll start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at this real quick. I
Jose,
see.
I have a physical hand up.
Oh, I can't. Oh, thank you, Michelle. So I see 5 with Michelle's physical hand. Am I missing any other hands? Okay, hearing none, I hear, oh, I see one more hand was added. So 6 hands. All right, I see 6 hands. Thank you, Michelle. All right, everyone clear your hands. And John, I'm guessing you want,
I'm abstaining.
you're abstaining, but we're also doing against, right?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone not in favor of adding that, put your hands up and I'll start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, is anyone actually holding a physical hand up? All right, let me count these real quick. See 8.
Okay. So the motion fails, but we have.
I'm abstaining along with John Mooney.
Okay. Any
Lynn.
abstentions other than Lynn and John Mooney? You can unmute. You don't have to raise your hands.
Okay.
John, hearing none? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But we have Mike's assurance that in fact, Fairfax County DOT will hold a community consultation process. Okay, are there any other issues that we need to discuss?
John, I don't know if these are previous hands from the voting, but I see Gary, one to come down, but Mike
Oh,
Jennings
Gary
as well.
forgot how to get his hand down, sorry.
Uh-oh.
But can you,
There's no,
what was the final vote? Sorry, what was the final vote again?
It was 6, 4, 8 against, 2 abstentions. That was you and John Mooney. Did anyone not vote on that?
Okay. I think I'll change my abstention to a 4.
Okay.
And be done with it. Thank you.
So 7, 4, 8 against, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Thank you. Any other issues that people want to discuss in the draft copy here? Okay. Then what I would like to do, so there are no further comments on the chapter, draft chapter. Going once, going twice. Okay. Okay, if we could now move to the grid of streets.
Put that up in a bit. Give me one
Thank
second.
you. And this is Mike Jennings' version.
John, when you said this is Mike Jennings' version, this is John Carter's version. But with Mike Jennings' comparison.
It's John. Yes. It's Mike Jennings' composition of John's compared with the existing one. And
but
then
it's John Carter's.
It is John. I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
It's Mike Jennings' version, the combo version of John Carter and the existing one, which is a helpful comparison.
Okay. So this is the one that Mike Jennings sent this afternoon, right, John? That's the one?
Correct.
Okay.
And when we're done with this, we will go to Mike Jennings' latest emailed version, which shows questions he had about John Carter's version of Wheelie Transit Station area. But so everyone has had a chance, I think, to see these. Does anyone have questions about, and if you could, so if you could scroll down here. Oh, okay. Yeah. This is the Wheelie station. So you can see Mike has put in red where John has eliminated streets that were in this version. Now, just to point out two obvious things, two of the most obvious things to me. John has removed the so-called road to nowhere. Here, if let me, so
It's the road from nowhere, but yeah.
Yeah, to or from nowhere.
Would it be possible to reduce the size so we can see both the green and the red in the same window? Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Jose.
Okay, so the road to or from nowhere has been removed, and also the proposed road in the previous, both the road to from nowhere was in the previous comprehensive plan, and also a road from the intersection of Isaac Newton Square North, running along or right through the edge of Lake Fairfax Park toward Wheelie was removed, and other as Mike Jennings has indicated have been removed. But the two more notable ones are the ones I mentioned.
John, may I comment? This is Tammy.
Yes.
The road from nowhere, that doesn't need any explanation. That needs to go away. The Isaac Newton Square Lincoln to the east of Wheelie. My understanding is the topography there is exceedingly challenging, and that would likely not be buildable. I've been told that by two people, so I understand why John Carter removed that. I believe that's the case there.
Okay. Does anyone, so
John, I have a question, just
yes,
for clarification, because I've been confused about the line that Tammy was just referring to. It does appear to be there. That seems to be the dotted line that runs from Wheelie over past Lake Fairfax Park, maybe through it, not clear. And I guess my question is this: are these considered sort of concepts for further consideration, or are we trying to say these really ought to be built? Because that one does concern me more than most, for some of the reasons Tammy just said, but also the line going through would, if I understand it right, go through additional wooded areas and possibly through areas that the land use plan is saying are potentially developable. So
let's let John Carter explain this. John, are you on the line?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that if you look at the two drawings, it's the red diagonal one. And that goes through an existing parking garage, which is fairly new, and then through the tip of Lake Fairfax Park. This has been voted on by the commission and took it off as part of the motel that was in Lake Fairfax Business Park. And I think the Board of Supervisors already approved that. It really isn't possible to build it the way it is. So that should come off. The other ones, I don't, just to move this thing along, if I could, I would take that off. The other ones that Mike has put on there, maybe some of those work. We probably ought to have Mike and John take a look at this before we put this in concrete. But that's basically a draftsman, myself's best stab at this. Without the staff looking at it. And I think they should look at it. I think Mike probably has some good suggestions there, and maybe some of those would work. So that's my suggestion. Take the diagonal that goes through the park and through that parking garage off the road to nowhere. You don't have the other ones. We also made changes to the North Town Center to match what the park has done, and some changes to Herndon Monroe. And so I think the staff might take another stab at this. And I don't have any major concerns with the comments that are here. I just we shouldn't take them down streams, or if the topography is really bad, not take them through the topography. And then we should have a note once we get these in concrete, so to speak. We ought to have a note. And I think Mark Looney has brought this up, that these are desire lines, they're concept, and so they might move a little bit. So that's my suggestion on where to go with this. But I don't have any major concerns with what the comments that you have there, except if it goes down a stream or the topography. It's just that one diagonal that goes through the parking garage and that little stream, since it's already been discussed by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So
Thank you very much.
John, I have a comment or question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
Please.
good. I have gone to look for the road to nowhere. I've gone on the north side of Isaac Newton Square. The first right is down to a parking lot, essentially. There's no other right. I cannot find it. Where in the world is it?
Well, if you look
It
at it on the
doesn't exist.
bottom line, it's that green one there.
But
Green one.
It
Here.
does not exist, Jan. It is a figment of the county's imagination that magically appeared on a map.
well,
Okay.
I think there's a couple, we've been over the road to nowhere a few points and agreed to take it out. The same with the one going through Fairfax, Lake Fairfax. And so in addition to what John,
Somewhere. I'd like to know where. I mean, just for curiosity.
Does somebody have the cursor? Can you put it on there and show
Please.
Jen where it is? There you go.
I appreciate it.
There you go.
There it is right there, Jen. Okay, I have a comment, and then I'm going to make a motion. The comment is that John Carter's statement reflecting Mark Looney's concern that all of these lines are conceptual in the sense that they may have to be adjusted because of
Topography.
topography and so forth. That is already in the text. That's in the text already. And the motion I will make is ask people to vote on that we do what John Carter suggested and affirm the removal of the road to from nowhere and also the diagonal road cutting through Lake Fairfax Park, and refer the other issues indicated here by Mike Jennings to John King and Mike Garcia for analysis and recommendations to us.
John.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Moira. Can I just ask one
Could
quick
I have
question?
a second? Could I have a second first?
Yeah.
I second that, John.
Okay. Okay, Moira.
Just really quickly, I just wanted to ask about one quick dotted line. If you took Wheelie from the top map and came all the way down Wheelie till sunrise, do you see the dotted line over there to the left that comes from or through this go up a little bit, move your hand up to the red board. Yes, right exactly there. There's a light right there. So is that a street that's coming just before the light? I'm confused about that dotted line.
That's actually a street that's approved as part of the Vernado development.
Is that going to be a light?
No light there, no.
Okay,
It'll have
hopefully
to be a
just a
one-way
right turn
in and out.
only.
Yeah, right turn
And
out.
Moira, that's one too, just so you know, the property owner has basically let me know that they're going to be coming back with changes. I think that's pretty widely
Okay,
known.
I just can't see anyone taking a left out of there and having a light there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to turn left out of there.
Nope.
But yes, that's
Okay.
an example of what John Mooney was talking about through the development process, Vernomino may change their notion
Mhm.
of that street. And then that the comp plan would allow you to do that the way it's crafted now.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Thanks so much. That just caught my eye. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second.
Sorry, John, one more point of discussion. The iteration that we are looking at from the streets eliminated is incorrect because the road from nowhere is not highlighted in red, when in fact it has been eliminated from John Carter's version.
Yeah.
So that road from nowhere should be, if Mr. Jennings would make that
Yeah, I
correction.
missed that. I missed
But
that.
that is not the work of the task force. That's Mike's work.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
missed
what I
that.
said. If
You're
Mr.
right.
Jennings would correct his
Yes.
version, then I would
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I
appreciate
Yeah,
can
we're
do that.
not, we're not voting on Mike Jennings' version. We're voting on John's version.
Okay.
um, with the affirmation that the road to from nowhere would be eliminated, the
Right.
diagonal road cutting through Lake Fairfax Park, and the rest would be referred for recommendations from Fairfax County DOT to us.
So John, just for clarification, Mike Jennings' version without the road to nowhere from nowhere, because we all know that's gone. Is that, and John said the diagonal red line is gone, but is the rest of that being referred to the staff too, also to give back feedback?
Yes, the two will be taken to staff to look at it.
Right.
That's fine. Thank you.
And I do want to, I spent a little time on this. I know how tedious it is to develop, so we ought to thank Mike Jennings for spending his time and on doing the same thing. So this is basically a drafting exercise, and everybody's taking the best stab at it that we can.
Right, and John put on, these are conceptual. I think, Mark Liddy brought that up, and he's put that on these texts too. And so I think the anticipation was like,
yes,
getting this set out there, these ought to be looked at.
Okay, can we vote on the motion? Jose, will you lead us through it? Again, the motion is that having affirmed the removal of the road to from nowhere and the diagonal road of Fairfax County DOT, will look at not only John's map, but also Mike's map and come back with recommendations to us. Okay?
Yeah, John, happy to do that. I think Mike Garcia with FCDOT has a virtual hand. I didn't know if you wanted
Okay. Mike?
I do. I just need to just one for the task force. We did ask as a change to the concept grid to have a connection from North Shore to American Dreamway. It's a short 2-lane segment that we thought might be worthwhile to kind of see if it makes sense. We never did kind of hear back from the task force, and I hate to introduce it now, but again, I wanted to make sure that we, in being fully kind of clear about what it is we're asking, at least put it out there for this group to say something like, yeah, like give FCDOT a chance to kind of evaluate it and see if it makes sense. Just kind of some direction.
Okay.
I can tell you, based on the neighborhood comments from Wheelock's plan, that is going to be met with a lot of opposition from the neighborhood in North Shore.
It's not on the map, so
It's not on the map, and I may have misunderstood John King. I did not understand it. He and I discussed that, Mike, and I did not understand it was being proposed for the comprehensive plan. That's why we didn't include it here.
We're asking for the group to weigh in. That's why we wanted to kind of get it here before we took it any further.
This is Tammy, and I'd like to make a comment on that. The road from the American Dream Way is a private road. And when the road from nowhere came up, unequivocally, Wheelock said they would not allow a public road to intersect their private road under any circumstance. So I think that's mute.
Tammy, okay.
And the neighborhood is going to be
a private road. It is not a VDOT road. And it is in their plans slated to stay a private road.
So
There,
would it be fair, to do this, that when Fairfax County DOT comes back to us, they can show the segment that they're talking about and the arguments for it, but we just heard Tammy's statement, a representation of what the owners said about that. So would it be okay are we okay with them at least showing them what they're talking about, what Fairfax County DOT is talking about? That little.
Yes.
I think that makes
And it
sense.
would go through a public process so that the neighbors that live in this neighborhood would be able to voice their opposition.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, we've clarified the question. Can we have the vote, please, Jose?
Yeah, just let me make sure everyone's clear of their hands.
Could I just clarify that what we are going to be submitting does not include a connector from North Shore to American Greenway?
It does not.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Who said that?
John Carter.
John Carter.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not on John's
Okay. Thank you.
nor on the other one.
Thank you.
Okay, so if everyone can hear me, yes. Those in for, I just need your virtual hands up, and Linda, I just want to make sure that you're for, because it was up earlier. Oh, okay. Okay, so everyone that is for this, I'm going to start counting at the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any physical hands up? Just making sure before I count. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. John, I see 12.
Okay, 12-4, okay. Any again?
Wait, give me 1 second. I saw Chris Daniel. Everyone keep your hands up. I think Moira has hers. Let me just count again. I think I saw an extra one.
13.
13. Yeah, I was right.
Okay.
Sorry about that, John.
That's
Everyone
okay.
put your hands down. Jennifer and Michelle. I think those are previous hands. All right, everyone against. I'll start counting. Count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any physical hands up? I just see one hand, John.
Okay, and my
Any
abstention.
any other abstentions other than John Mooney? Yeah, I hear none, John.
Okay, thank you. And John Money, if I could just jump in, want to thank the task force for framing it that way, and you, John, because just to remind everybody, one of the elements in the board matter that I made to get this process going was to have county staff make sure that the transportation network was adequate to support the development and the development densities in the plan. So I do want to get their take on that. And this will do that. So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move to, if we can now look at the other two, pardon me, Jose, if we could stay with Mike Jennings. We've handled Wheelie. Are there any comments on the other stations? There's Reston Town Center. Any comments there?
I don't see any hands, John.
Okay. Going once, going twice. Let's move now to Herndon.
I forgot to vote on that one. So count me as a yes.
Okay, Jan, I'm assuming that it's a unanimous consent since there was no objection.
John, I hate to ask this. Can you go right back up really quickly? What is that blue? Just go down a tiny bit. Here it says Reston Parkway all the end. What is that cutting through there? That dotted blue. Where is that? Reston.
That goes through, you know, where Reston Association is.
Yeah. Is that a road or that is going to be a road?
That's going to be a road.
It's a
Okay. all
private
right, thank
driveway
you.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that didn't look familiar to me. Okay, that's all. I'm just curious.
Okay, thank you. So by unanimous consent, we're agreeing to John's um, grid of streets there, his conceptual version of it. Let's move to Herndon. Again, any comments? Unfortunately, Mark Malcolm cannot be here because of a pressing matter he had to attend to. I will ask Mark for comments, but right now, does anyone have any?
I was muted. Sorry, I didn't see any hands, John, but
Okay.
No.
Oh.
Can I just ask one more quick question? On the map on the top, just to the right of Monroe Street, there's a dotted line. Is that pond the one that has the lily pads in it? Where is that pond?
Yes, it is. It's right there. You can see it on the map. A little hard to see, but it's there.
Okay, so it's just cutting through some sort of existing property, but it's not
Right.
taking away any of those woodlands.
Doesn't touch the pond. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So any comments on that? Going once? Going twice? Okay. I will assume therefore that we have unanimous consent to accept John's rendition of the Herndon grid of streets, pending confirmation with Mark that there are no major issues. Is that a fair proviso that we ask Mark? Mark Malcolm?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a courtesy.
Okay, good enough. We are done with the grid of streets then. Okay, the next one is the community health group's concerns. Could you please put that up? Okay.
Bigger, please. Thank you.
So I shared with the task force the concerns that had been forwarded to me from the community health group by Jennifer on the 16th, and the drafting team submitted this response. Since then, there have been conversations between John Carter, who also advised the drafting team on this, and Michelle. If you could go scroll down to protecting children and families in Reston. And Michelle requested, and John thought it was a good thing to do, to change the shoulds to must. So that section would read, in accordance with the policy of safe access to schools, which is a Fairfax County policy, innovative improvements that provide safe and accessible routes to school must be established. Examples must include improved sidewalks, pedestrian lightings, accessible curb ramps for the handicapped, wide sidewalks and traffic calming devices. Appropriate bus stops and pickups and drop-off areas must also be provided. So there is the substitution of 3 musts for shoulds. I recommend that we accept this modified version, and that you all direct the drafting committee to put these provisions into the text of the transportation chapter at the appropriate places. Is there
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Is that a motion? I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
This is Bill. Just the idea of examples must include,
Okay.
to the extent they're examples.
Why don't we
maybe it's examples include?
I totally agree with you. In fact, I had that in my copy and I missed it. You're absolutely right. Examples include, yeah. So there are two new musts.
I'll second the amended motion.
Okay. Any further?
John,
Yes.
real quick, on the sidewalks along those various corridors, Reston Parkway by and large doesn't have sidewalks, it has trails. I'm assuming that we mean the same thing in both of those circumstances as opposed to picking one over the other.
Point, Mark. Thank you for catching that. Michelle, is there any problem with that? So we would say sidewalks or trails?
Yeah, there is a problem because the trails aren't always convenient. And so I think part of this is also encouraging that this would be made more accessible and convenient. So I guess I think that in the current draft, right, we have though adding sidewalks to Reston Parkway. Is that not correct, John? Or what's the language?
I don't, let me get it for you here. And actually, while John's looking for that, can somebody tell me the difference between a sidewalk and a trail?
Excellent question.
Width.
So
It's-
width
it's-
and location, or
It's
just width?
it's typically width and purpose. So sidewalks
Isn't it
typically.
proximity to
pedestrian only.
roadways? Isn't it also proximity to roadways?
Do you want me to
It
weigh in?
doesn't. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
The other distinction,
go ahead,
is
Mike.
sidewalks are typically concrete, trails can be concrete or asphalt.
Right.
So Mike, what was that again? Can you?
So that wasn't me, but
Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
so-
Mike. Please. Larry Butler. Oh, hey, Larry.
Sidewalks are typically concrete, trails can be concrete or asphalt typically, but when people refer to sidewalks, they typically mean something that's in concrete.
Okay, let's make sure, thank you, Larry. Let's make sure in the county context, what's the
So-
difference between a trail and a sidewalk?
Yeah, in the county context of a sidewalk is generally it is concrete. It's more kind of what you'd see with a buffer kind of close to the road. So you have that 4 to 8 foot buffer depending on the type of sidewalk and whatever is kind of called for. The trail doesn't necessarily have to be in right of way. It can kind of meander in and out. And it just kind of really depends on what it is, and it kind of enters the parks. The other part that people are probably considering is a shared use path, which is a 10-foot asphalt trail, a 10-foot asphalt pathway that people can walk or bike along. Generally, you can bike along sidewalks as well. But that's kind of the distinguishing things, just so people are aware. If we have pathways that are less than 10 feet wide, just for everyone's understanding, if it's like 6 or 8 feet, which is also allowed per the county countywide trails plan, the county would maintain those type of facilities if they're in the right of way. I'm just going to point that out there, just a point of reference. I think for you all's sake, it should be a sidewalk is generally 5 to 6 feet, sometimes 8, depending on high trafficked areas, and a shared use path is 10 feet. And I think that's kind of what you all might want to consider.
Okay. Okay, I do not see for Reston Parkway, and I hope I will check this out, but I do not see a requirement for sidewalks the entire length.
Interesting.
Well, it today has
It says on page 2, the parkway should include a shared use path on at least one side and an enhanced streetscape on both sides. So it does not, so that's in general. Now, there are more specific provisions in the placemaking section, pages 17, page 17, but there is not a there is no provision for sidewalks the full length.
May I ask though, this is for the examples, Mark. So why not just allow for improved sidewalks to be listed as an example?
That's, I mean, I guess I'm not objecting to it other than it just limits it to sidewalks should be a priority along these routes. And I guess historically, Reston Parkway, some of the others have had pathways. That's why there's a conversation about helping Reston Association maintain some pathways, right? So I'm just, if we're now pivoting from trails to sidewalks, I just think it ought to be clear that that's what we're doing.
I don't know
Could I
if
have
it's
a
a pivot.
suggestion, please? Perhaps just say sidewalks slash trails, and you cover it.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
fine with that. That's what, that was my intent. Yeah.
Sidewalks slash trails.
I don't see though, I mean, I think where we are lacking is on sidewalks. On trails, we don't necessarily need improved trails. We do need additional sidewalks. So I think if this is also saying, what do we need? That's what we need.
Well, this is safe access to schools. So if it's a trail that's a safe access, let's
Right,
have it be improved.
Right, but for a number of the routes to schools, what we're missing are safe sidewalks, because again, sometimes the trails just are not
Adequate.
Right.
I thought we were talking about.
I think Tammy's point is that the introductory sentence to that section establishes the principle. In accordance with the policy of safe access to school, innovative improvements that provide safe and accessible routes to school must be established. And then the examples, and Tammy is saying that having established that firm principle, that they have to be safe and accessible routes, she is then suggesting that we include, having established that, we allow some flexibility for what will meet that requirement. And that could be sidewalks or trails, but they have to be safe and they have to be accessible.
I don't know how you make a trail safe and accessible. I don't think that would meet county guidelines anyway, that a trail.
Were we just talking about the example being Reston Parkway, which is, on Reston Parkway?
That was an example, I think, Gary.
That was an example where, I mean, where you have the schools are on the other side of a major road, and you'll have new students living in the buildings in the TSAs.
Right.
And so some of the thought is how can you encourage walking and biking? And can you do that? When decisions are made to prioritize cars, that might not be possible, but it would certainly be nice in a city that's supposed to be livable and in an area, the TSA, that's supposed to be walkable, that children can get to school. So that's
we're talking just about the example of Reston Parkway, Michelle? Is that?
No, I'm not. That was just one. That just is where my mind went. But there's a number of areas. I mean, Sunrise Valley. The sidewalks aren't continuous.
Okay.
So
if we, Michelle, thank you. I think you made your point clear. Are there any other comments on this? And what motion? Well, let's try it as it stands with the two shoulds. So one should is so the example should include. We've eliminated the should there. There is a should in the first sentence, which has been proposed to be changed to a must, and a should in the last sentence proposed to become a must. So let's vote it as it is, where it says sidewalks, and we'll see what the group wants to do. So
could we suggest an amendment to include what Tammy suggested, to do sidewalks / trails? Or you want to go this way first?
I would like to go this way first, because the proposers have shown that they do not agree with saying sidewalks or trails. So let's vote it as it is, with only those two musts change, shoulds change to musts. So could you lead us? Yes.
you know, that leaves it pretty cold there. I think Jennifer just sent out a point about supporting, I think, the sidewalks version of this.
Jennifer, would you say what you wanted to say, please?
Never mind.
I
Let her
think,
go.
John, you're voting without the change of trails.
That's correct.
Okay, then I'll give my comment. If that fails, and then it would be an applicable comment. So I'm ready
Okay.
to vote.
Okay.
Sorry, Jennifer.
No
So
worries.
that is the motion. We don't have to. That's the point we're voting on. Could you count noses, please, Jose?
Happy to, John.
Do you have a second?
John?
We've not done seconds before, but would you second? that?
Second.
Okay, Bill seconds. Thank you.
Okay,
All
so
those in favor, please.
those in favor, keep your hands up and I'll count in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any physical hands up before I start counting the virtual ones? All right, keep them up. 2, 3. I see 6.
6, okay. Those against, please.
All right, everyone clear your hands. Jan, you have your virtual hand up. Okay, those against, put up your virtual hand and I'll start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep them up, and if there's any physical hands, please let me know. 9.
Okay.
All right, clear your hands. Any abstentions, John?
Other than me?
Other than John? Please let me know. Feel free to unmute.
Okay, the motion fails 691. Okay, Jennifer, did you want to propose a substitute motion?
No, I don't have. I liked the first motion. I voted to keep the text that's currently in there. The example I gave is there's a trail on the south side of Sunrise Valley Drive from South Lakes. And you can't, like, I cannot walk there safely, and especially not with a child, to get them to Sunrise Valley Elementary. So it's an example of a trail and how a trail does not work when you're talking about safe access to schools in all cases. Love the ones that RA provides, the ones that are, you know, paved potentially could, but this is about getting, you know, kids safely to school, and a hard surface is required, one that's defined by a sidewalk, in my opinion.
But trails
could
are
Jennifer-
paved.
Jennifer,
Not all trails are paved, and just like Larry said, they're not there. That's not a requirement. When you talk about sidewalks, you're specifically meaning something that's paved.
What if
Jennifer, could we suggest that it be I guess we shouldn't use the word safe because all trails are supposed to be safe, but a paved/paved trail, and rather than just trail, paved trail? I guess you
Then
could say
I would defer to the county staff, because my understanding is that trails also don't have to have the same gradient requirements that a sidewalk would have. So for
Maybe we
instance,
should
we
ask
have
them
RA
those
trails
things.
that are paved, but they also, you know, potentially go down a hill because they keep the topography typically of what's there. And so we have icing issues all the time. On sidewalks, there's much more specific requirements.
Comments from our friends in VDOT? I mean, not VDOT, Fairfax County DOT, I'm sorry.
What
Mike?
I'll say is that sidewalks and shared use paths are something that we find to be acceptable. They both support the ability to walk and bike to and from particular places. So we don't feel that an asphalt path is inadequate in any way. So it just depends on the context in which they're trying to be implemented.
And if
But
not,
but Jennifer's saying that some of them aren't paved.
Yeah.
And so how do we cope with that?
Yeah,
Could we say as compliant trail?
Yeah, how about it? Yeah, ADA compliant.
Yeah, could we add compliancy? Because I get where Jennifer's coming from because I'm a backpacker. Trail could mean pretty extreme things, but if we could clarify that the trail has to be compliant with the criteria we're looking for, which was the policy for safe access and maybe ADA, as Walter's saying, then would we kind of meet the Reston spirit of keeping trails as a potentiality, but they do have to meet a certain requirement?
So what I'll say is that anything that's constructed will be ADA compliant. It's not, we can't build things that are not. If there are things that are not ADA compliant today, is if we don't touch it, then we're not going to go back. Then it's going to stay as such. If we do, as the county, go in and start modifying things, then we have to make them ADA compliant.
John, may I offer an amendment to your motion that would read ADA compliant sidewalks and trails should be a priority?
Mike, are you saying that it should be shared use path instead of trails?
I would say yes. If you want to do, you can do, what I would recommend is sidewalks / pathways. And the reason I'm going to say that is that that pathway allows us to kind of run the gamut from a 10-foot shared use path or to something that's, say, an 8-foot or a 6-foot wide asphalt path that the county would maintain. So that's kind of why I'm trying, I think that's your wiggle room that you're looking for. But what it does is it says we want a surface that people can walk and or bike on in a safe way to get from a particular point to another point. And I think that's kind of where you all are going.
Yes, and I can agree to that. It was trails, and I think to Looney's point, he was talking more from a developer standpoint. Whereas, obviously the county's not going to, make something that's not ADA compliant. But if a developer puts it in, we also want it to be ADA compliant. So I think we need to be specific and maybe use that shared
Jennifer,
use pathway, I think is what Garcia is saying.
Yeah, just to be clear, I wasn't
pathway
suggesting that we do less than what Mike was suggesting. I think because a lot of times there Reston Parkway, the trails along Reston Parkway date back 40 years, and they were developed with a 75-foot setback from the right of way along Reston Parkway to maintain the trees, and that's I'm suggesting that that's the same thing that would happen in other places. Just a
So a
5-foot
shared
sidewalk is
use,
different. Yeah,
a shared
yeah,
use path is acceptable to you then too.
correct. Yeah.
I would propose we let Mike Garcia state the exact wording we put in here, and then vote on that.
Okay. I have a quick question, and Jennifer, maybe you probably know this section better than I do. Are we making sure that we talk about putting sidewalks or pathways that are paved on both sides? Because I think about, you think about South Lakes Drive that goes by the high school. A lot of those kids are walking through the grass on the side of the road that has no path. And some of those people are standing at bus stops in the grass or dirt. And you can't envision somebody with a stroller or a wheelchair trying to access those bus stops. So is that addressed here? I just don't see it clearly.
I believe, Moira, that is implicit, and implicit may not be enough in the first sentence. In accordance with the policy of safe access to schools, innovative improvements that provide safe and accessible routes to school must be established. So if the safe and accessible route requires something on both sides, then it goes on both sides. If not, not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it probably can't go on all both sides. Like, for example, if you go down Wheelie, there's certain sides of Wheelie that you can't have a sidewalk or a pathway because of the incline. But if you could, it would be great, because I can't tell you how many places around Reston we all see these people who are walking in the grass along the side of the road that has no sidewalk or path on that side. But it would be nice to create actual sidewalks or pathways on the side that doesn't have one. And maybe, yes, I would like to be more explicit.
So this is Bill. Let me,
Especially for wheelchairs, strollers, those kinds of things where you need sidewalk.
so could I comment? This is Bill. We need to be careful as to where we saying we want it. We don't want it on every road. Take my neighborhood, same street that Jennifer lives on. There is a sidewalk on one side of the residential neighborhood, and if we required sidewalks on both sides, we're taking somebody's land, and I don't think it'd be either necessary or popular. But I mean, if the group wants to do it, just understand if you're talking about major connector roads, you know, like South Lakes or whatever, maybe that makes sense, but I think we need to be precise. The other thing is there are locations where it either is impractical to build a sidewalk. You can narrow the road, maybe that can do it. But I'll mention there's the golf course along Sunrise Valley that comes right up to the curb. Are you proposing that a portion of the golf course be taken to put in a nice wide sidewalk where nobody's walking because the people live on the other side of the street? So I just need to be careful when you say all everywhere.
There is a bus stop on that side, though. May I make the suggestion?
Of course, they're down near the residential area.
Well,
Because down near the residential area, certainly.
On the side without the sidewalk. Would this also perhaps be something that could be done in a follow-on motion to really look at this and prioritize looking at our schools and the routes kids are taking, and then make sure that these are high priorities and certainly any county-led efforts for transportation improvements?
Yeah, Michelle, I would love that. There's some very scary situations right now. I think most of them are outside of Reston, but we have elementary schools where parents and kids are crossing busy streets without even a crosswalk.
I mean, I had to usher kids around a bush because a cyclist was hit walking home from school. So it happens in Reston too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you're right. But go ahead and finish this off. And I know we're at 8:32, but it's been a very good discussion. But Michelle, thank you for bringing that up. There may be some things that some of this could be addressed as an implementation issue.
So I would entertain a motion that we approve the language with the two musts, striking the word sidewalk and have sidewalk/pathway based on the recommendation from Mike Garcia, with the understanding that there may be follow-on motions later.
John, I would second that. Is that the exact word though, Mike? Was it just pathways or was it safe pathways or something you said?
Can we use shared use pathways?
Mike?
Shared use paths or pathways. I just chose pathways in case, because shared use path has a specific width and dimension to it, but a pathway allows us a little bit of flexibility, but it's entirely what you all want to decide.
And I thought we were talking about the active transportation improvements that says sidewalks should be a priority along Reston Parkway. And I see that shared use pathways is being entered under protecting children and families in Reston. So I may not be following where we are.
Did I mess up? Sorry, that's me. I'll take that out.
No, you didn't mess up.
No worries.
Oh, okay.
Nope, that's where we
It
are.
would go there, but it would also go in the first word for active transportation improvements.
We haven't even
Paragraph
got to that one
below.
yet.
Not there yet, Lynn.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So John, I think Gary seconded that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just said, as long as Mike was expanding that to say shared use pathways. And if, can I modify your proposal, John Mooney, to use the words that Mike Garcia just used.
I used his term, so I said strike the word sidewalk and add sidewalk/pathway.
But I'm saying
So if we're in
sidewalks
that,
slash shared use pathways.
Well, he said
So-
he said he preferred pathway, I believe.
It gives him more latitude depending on the area for the county to build something and maintain it. I think that's what you want to do, is the county to maintain it. So, right, everything except sidewalk/pathway, and let's vote.
well, I think the other change that we had talked about in John's motion was that in the first sentence, it says safe and accessible routes to schools should be established. It should be must be established.
I said that in my motion. I said.
Yes.
He said that in the proposal.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
So the musts remain in the basic text. What we're changing now is sidewalks to sidewalks/pathway. And it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor, please indicate by raising their hands. And
Okay, John, I can start counting hands in 5,
Wait,
4,
okay.
3,
Something's in my way here.
2.
I got my hand up.
I see your physical hand, Gary. 1. Okay. So give me a moment to count these hands. $16 hands.
okay.
Everyone take down your hands. We'll do against. And I'll start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see no hands, John.
Okay, and 1 abstention.
Any other abstention other than John? Okay, I hear none, John.
Okay. As I understood it, that was the only issue, concern that Michelle had and Jennifer had expressed about it, the section on protecting children and families. So.
So Jose, can you change should to must? Because I think that's what we just voted on.
Yeah.
Oh
in that
yeah, I was
first
happy,
sentence.
happy to do that.
Thank you.
I got lost. Yeah. So,
Thanks so much.
Thank
I
you.
missed.
There's another must down there. You can't think.
I got it, Jan. Thank you.
Okay.
See, you're ahead of me.
Okay.
John,
I try my best.
I have one question on the new standards though. I think we also used some shoulds up there in the intro paragraph. With the new standards, should that be a must instead of should? Are those in place and certainly for new applications must be incorporated?
Where are you?
I think we talked about that, John. And
These standards and guidelines should be used in new as well as amendments to existing applications. What I'm suggesting is that for new, they must.
Could somebody? I'm lost. Somebody point a cursor what we're talking about here.
Was that it, Michelle?
Yep, that's it. That's the sentence. So I think certainly for new applications, they must, if these are the new standards. And then if amendments are being made, I'd also like to make the suggestion that must would also be appropriate.
Sounds good.
yeah,
I would second that if it's a motion.
well, can we talk about it for a second? Because I think we talked about that, and I just can't remember Bill and John. And we did do some consulting with John Carter. Was there some reason we did that? Can you remember?
We put should, John Carter, we put should because they're guidelines. So guidelines aren't usually must. Standards are must, but guidelines are always should. So,
So is it guidelines or standards? Because we call them both.
yeah.
Mike Garcia or John King, do you have any light to shed on this question?
I can try to help. So when we mentioned the urban street standards, those are standards. I think we're kind of mixing guidelines and standards in here. So it's a little bit difficult for me to kind of follow this particular paragraph. Just for what it's worth. Just trying to be frank here.
Actually, looking at this, I mean, guidelines are usually should, but if you look at the bullets, all of those are probably musts. They're already pretty simple. I mean, you're going to have crosswalks, you're going to have closely spaced trees, you're going to have safe pedestrian, well, not necessarily street lights. Ramps would be a must. The large areas for refuge would be a must. I guess double left turn lanes would be a should.
Hey, John, does that get back to why staff review is going to be really helpful? Because some of these are, county standards that have to be met for anything. And that might be some of the ones that we have to suss out through a staff review of, hey, this is already required by county standards that we have to follow for any road, trail, whatever item you want to pick, and might be able to correct us when we're saying should or vice versa. I just don't want us to spiral into a nuance of each one because
Right.
I think staff will know better than we will with some of them.
I'm going to make a motion.
Can I ask
I'm going to make a motion
question?
that go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can we clean it up simply by taking out the words "and guidelines"? If these are standards, which the title says they are, then just say these standards will be used in new as well, and leave it at that. Does that work for you, Mike Garcia?
I think the issue is that the urban street standards, as we put them together, kind of dictate the type of facility in terms of the street width, the buffer,
Right.
the sidewalk. They don't get down to the level of ramps and street lights and refuge. Those are kind of take place in the design, and they kind of part of the, so those kind of come as the next stage of it. The last bullet itself is actually not a standard. It's more of a guideline that we kind of have in the plan today that kind of talks about how we do tiers of mitigation. So that's actually a mitigation piece right there.
So my motion was going to be that we refer this section, this top section, to, well, my motion would be that we approve this whole thing.
John?
However, that we refer the first section that we're now discussing to our dear friends at Fairfax County DOT for them to sort out the appropriate language regarding those things that are guidelines and those things that are standards.
Okay, could I just say, why don't we just say these standards must and guidelines should, and leave it at that, and then we've, essentially done it, and Mike and the staff will sort it out as appropriate when they, deal with it.
My feeling is that right now, we need to be as specific as possible for the people who come in. We don't want them to wonder, well, can we get by without this? We want to be as emphatic as we're allowed to be, so that in the future that becomes standard that they will follow, but they must follow too. So I'm just saying that this is our opportunity while we are writing this plan to put in caveats that are going to be acknowledged and followed by whomever down the line gets this and reads it. Thank you.
John, did you make a motion? Because I would love to second it.
One thing I might add to what Mike had said is that, and maybe I'm going back to what John Mooney had said as far as how we're going to weigh in on this, is that the conversion of this to comprehensive plan text is really where we will make that revision as to what is a standard, what's a guideline, and what's, as Mike said, really a mitigation. The paragraph as a whole is a mishmash of several things, and so it's not. I don't think we can just say it's a standard, as a guideline, and make it a revision based on how it's written. So what I would advise is just the ideas are here, and with the next step, when it gets turned over to staff to be changed into comprehensive plan language, we'll make modifications at that point to address that.
I'd like to motion to change the word from should to must,
I second that.
and submit it to staff that way.
second
It
that.
makes it very clear that this is what
Right.
we would like to have. They will make the modifications to the language when they edit it and bring it back to us.
That's a good idea.
I second that.
Now that Jennifer's made the motion, I would second it.
I would too. Well,
I thought Jennifer just made it.
Okay, let's,
I think Jan already seconded it.
it's been moved and seconded. Jose, would you please start counting votes? Those in favor of that, please indicate by raising your hands.
Okay, everyone. So I'll start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 9 hands.
Okay. Those against?
All right, everyone clear your hands.
working on it. There you go.
I can't clear mine for some reason here.
Yeah, Gary and Dennis, I don't know if Dennis had a hand up prior.
Yeah, there's it says Christopher Daniels speaking, and I can't get to the hand to take it down.
Yeah, he just
Wait,
took it
anyways.
down. I had the same problem.
Yeah.
He just took it down.
I went out and came in again.
Okay, well, I'll start counting hands, except for Dennis's, because he's trying to take
All
it
right,
down.
okay, just cleared. So I'm good.
Okay, okay. Everyone against, I'll start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 6.
Okay. Any abstentions other than me? Okay, 961, it passes. With
No.
Wait, did we miss someone?
I abstained.
Thank you,
Okay,
Bill.
2 abstains.
Okay, with the note that we ask Fairfax County DOT to sort it out. Okay. I now would entertain a motion to approve this whole sheet that we have, whose parts we have now approved. All in favor, please say that we have amended. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands.
Everyone, so I'll start counting hands in 5.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the motion, please?
Please. I don't know what it is either.
Okay, having massaged these various parts, I now move that we adopt the document thus amended as a whole.
Thank you.
You're talking about Jennifer's comments, correct, John?
I'm talking about this whole sheet with
Yes,
with the amendments we've made.
correct.
John, was there a second to that one?
No.
I second it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Gary. Okay. Thank you, Gary and Jan. All right, those 4, I'll start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See, we got a lot of hands, so I gotta start counting. See 14 hands.
Okay.
All right, clear hands. We'll do against. Charles Kapoor. Okay, so those against, I'll start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I see one hand, John.
One against?
Yeah, one against. And any abstentions other than John Mooney? David Gill, was that an abstention? Or was that an against?
Abstention.
Okay.
So 2 abstentions?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
John.
Thank you all. We're finished with this. Jose, if you could please put the process sheet up again. Okay, so our next thing is Rick Hamilton's concerns. So Rick had listed 14 different concerns. Would you pull up my quick checklist there? He had put up 14 concerns. I've summarized them here so that they can be seen kind of at one time.
John, who is Rick Hamilton?
He is a member of Polo Fields who has frequently offered comments, especially about the grade separated intersection at Fairfax County Parkway and Sunrise Valley.
Have these been circulated before, John? I don't think I'd seen them, but I may have missed them.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought he had sent it to everybody.
You might have, and I may have just missed it. I don't know.
No, it hasn't.
My bad. Okay. This is basically, we can read through the list. He said Fairfax County is talking about widening Fairfax Parkway, but not Fairfax County widening, Fairfax County Parkway widening, and they've not talked about sound walls. And then he makes, and I've highlighted the different sections, 6 of them referring to the grade separated intersection, which is his greatest concern. He talks about interims on number 4. He talks about interim solutions to inadequate sidewalks bordering polo fields. He talks about concern that the definition of expressway and principal arterials as serving abutting land being that serving abutting land is subordinate to accommodating the through traffic of vehicles. He's concerned in number 10 about multiple accidents at the corner of Sunrise Valley eastbound at Hitchcock, and he wants the county to look at a super elevation of the road, which they had earlier dismissed. And in number 7, he's concerned that the metrics, that misspelled that, the metrics for non-motorized mobility refers in a confusing way to general and specific metrics, which it does. But I don't believe it's confusing, but perhaps we can clarify it more. On 12, he talks about the ownership and trails and sidewalks by many entities, makes it hard for homeowners to navigate those entities if they want to complain about a problem. 13, he talks about ADA standards and ProWag being cited for peds and bicycles. Where are those found? And can we citizens change them? And finally, high volume and speed on polo field streets, especially Thunder Chase and Colts Brook, that should be addressed by the plan. So here's and then when I got back to him, I said, we are going to address these at the meeting, Rick. And he said, if you're not going to deal with it in the plan, then please find someone assigned to deal with this. So here's what I propose. The highlighted sections, which are about the grade separated intersection, the the task force voted unanimously to leave that grade separated intersection in the plan. However, to say that Fairfax County should, before doing a final design, have a community process with the communities involved that would look at the pros and cons of this and the pros and cons of various alternatives. And I've talked with the Fairfax County DOT staff, Mike and John, and they agreed we will do that. We will have that process. So my recommendation is that we let that stand in the plan as we unanimously voted to do. And we had heard I asked Mark Malcolm to address this issue before we took that vote, and we got a unanimous vote. On the other issues, I will personally work with Fairfax County DOT to have the other questions addressed with Mark. That is my recommendation for handling this. So I so move.
No, I second that, John.
So I'm a little bit concerned that, on the one that I highlighted on Reston Parkway, we were told community engagement would occur, but then we're also hearing in this document that at least recent experience, when community engagement occurs, it hasn't been adequate. So I'm just a little concerned with this whole process.
Okay, let me give some further background. So I talked about, I spoke about the historical background for the Reston Parkway widening and how that was in the 2014-15 comprehensive plan, how it was then put into the 2018 Reston Network Analysis Final Report, and how it then found itself in the Reston Funding Plan Draft Cash Flow of 2018. This grade separated intersection shares the same history. However, the funding for it does not begin until 2038 or 2043. There is a lot of time, and we have a commitment from our staff liaisons from Fairfax County DOT that they will hold this community process in a serious way.
So that's great, but just because it's been included in a comp plan doesn't mean that the community has read it, and doesn't mean that that's been real engagement. So I recognize there may be a history of someone including it, but that doesn't mean that the community knows what's coming.
Well, indeed, there are community.
John, can I jump in? I committed to the polo fields that I will, it's part of the public outreach process that, we've talked about after the task force makes their recommendations, that I will attend one specifically for polo fields. So at least as far as the comp plan is concerned, I'm sure that'll be widely attended there.
Right. And I will say from Reston Association side that Lynn Brown and Rick and then subsequently Mark Malcolm have asked Reston Association to meet with them. And I said, let's also invite Fairfax County DOT people. Mike Garcia agreed. We have tried for the last 3 months to put together that meeting. We have not been able to find a date, but I have tried again to put that forward, and Reston Association is willing to meet with them also. Obviously, we are not the decision makers, but Polo Fields is a member of Reston Association, and we're concerned about them. So we have 2 promised sets of meetings. We also have the commitment, at least from the Fairfax County DOT staffers, Mike Garcia and John King, that they will argue for an adequate community process. And again, It's to look at all the alternatives, and do nothing is one of the alternatives. The fact that it is not planned. So anyway, so we'd look at the alternatives and pros and cons before they would go to final design. And again, the fact that this is, and if you read Reston Network Analysis final report, you'll see that this is one of the lower priorities of the improvements, the major improvements. It is on the list, but it's one of the lower priorities, and that's why it's scheduled for using money between 2038 and 43. So there may be alternatives, but we have to have the conversation. But we need to deal with this in our current comprehensive plan. So again, I've made my motion. It's been seconded. Is there further discussion?
Could I get a clarification of your motion, John?
The motion
You
was
said it would work with this.
to leave. So it was two-part. That the highlighted, I believe the highlighted items, which are all about the grade separated intersection, are handled by the unanimous vote we made.
Right.
Okay. On the other issues, at Rick's request, he said, I want someone specifically appointed to each of the other points. I do not have that power. However, what I commit to, and Mike and John, Mike Garcia and John King, will you work with me to see that we are able to address, which is not to say we will get the solution desired by Rick, but at least we will seriously address the other issues that he has raised here.
By
And
which you mean you're gonna present them to staff, and
this is
somebody can look at it
outside the comprehensive plan.
Then why are
Yeah,
we voting?
we can look at that with you, John Mooney. So, and whatever is kind of appropriate for Polo Fields, we'll handle through that particular process through Alcorn's efforts, Supervisor Alcorn's efforts.
So,
Does that make sense, Walter?
sorry, John, I've got a quick question. Sorry.
Sure.
I didn't want to interrupt your question to Walter, John, but
And Walter gave the thumbs.
I know we're at 9 o'clock. We're after 9 o'clock. But I just had a quick question. When you said that you've been trying for, did you say 3 months?
Right.
To establish a meeting? Where was the holdup?
The holdup was people were traveling. People in the neighborhood were traveling at one point out of country at one time, so we couldn't hold it then. It was in the midst of our budget. Our budget preparation we tried another date, and I made a request I proposed other dates, and I've not had response to those. So there have been 3 attempts. One was due to our being overwhelmed by our budget process, but an earlier date couldn't happen because of travel of a key player from the community, and so that's where we are. I've proposed a date.
I find that concerning. That's all that
yeah.
It would take that long, but that's just me. Thank you.
I'm concerned too, because I'm keenly aware of the concern of the neighborhood, but that would be a meeting only with Reston Association, and Mike Garcia agreed to be there simply as a technical expert. So
John Mooney, if I could say something, this is David Vanel. I think the task force, to me anyway, if John Mooney is saying that he is going to make a good faith effort to get each and every one of these unhighlighted issues in front of the appropriate entity with the appropriate people at the table, I think we can trust him to do that.
I agree, David.
Let's vote, please.
Yeah, take a vote.
All those in favor, please raise your electronic hands. Michelle, you have a hand up right now.
Okay, everyone, I'll start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and keep them up. I'll start counting now. I see 9 hands on.
Okay. Those against?
So everyone take down your hands. Those against, I'll start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. John, I only see 1 hand.
Okay.
Any abstentions other than John? I'll start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, Maura, is that I know you had your hand up for the previous one. Give me 1 second. Maybe I'm.
I took my hand down.
Oh, okay. So I see it's still up, but I won't count.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Oh, is
don't need
it?
to apologize. Yeah, I see it up, but it may be my WebEx is being weird too.
Yeah, I don't see mine up.
Oh, now it's down. 6 abstentions.
Okay.
That includes you, John.
Pardon me?
6 abstentions, including you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now at the point where I will make a motion to approve substantively, again, not for all the cleanup issues of formatting and style and corrections, which I've indicated in the process of this evening, to substantially approve this chapter. Is there a second?
I second that, John.
Okay, discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your electronic hands.
Hey, everyone, I'll start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, keep them up. See 16 hands, John.
Okay. Any opposed?
Stop sharing my content to make it easier for me. All right, everyone clear hands. I'll start counting opposed in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 2 hands.
Okay.
Oh, I see 1 hand now. Sorry, 1 hand.
And abstentions besides me?
I can count if people want to just unmute. You can do that, but I can count in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Bill Penniman is abstaining with you, so it's 2 abstentions, John.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you all very much. And this is the work of many, many people. And I've already thanked and will thank again our colleagues over in Fairfax County DOT. A special thanks to my fellow drafting committee members, Gary Maupin and Bill Penniman. And thanks to everyone who's worked on this, because at one time we had nearly a committee of the whole from the whole task force working on this when we were remember Transportation Connectivity Working Group, when we coined that fancy name. So so people attended many meetings. Many people attended many meetings.
John?
Yes.
Sorry for cutting off at that wonderful speech. I made a mistake in counting hands.
Okay.
There was no vote, so it should be 17 for and 2 abstentions.
17-4 and 0 abstentions. Okay.
0 against, 2 abstentions. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks.
I'm so sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to be quiet at this point.
Congratulations, John. That was a heck of a lot of work, and everybody who worked on it just did a fabulous job, and you steered the helm just right. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah, I have to ditto to Jan's comments, John. You and Bill and Gary did a great job on this.
Thank you.
Well, like John says, everybody, and John did tremendous amount of heavy lifting. Tremendous.
John, thank you. Thank you. Nice job, task force. Okay, it was about 55 minutes longer than the optimistic time frame, but anyway, thank you for getting through this section tonight. And I'm afraid, Michelle, I don't think we really have time to do start on community health tonight. So
There's one thing. I mean, this has gone around a number of times.
Please.
One consideration could be made that, you know, we could have a vote on whether or not it should at least go to staff at this point, with the understanding that further edits will be made later, but at least if we can get this to staff to review.
So, okay, thank you, Michelle. Wow, that's really fast.
That implies approval by the task force.
Correct.
It
So
does.
I'd at least like to take a vote before we end the meeting to see where we are, if we're at the point where we can at least send it to staff for the initial review.
I think Bill Penniman has a physical hand up.
Yeah, I just have a question. Something was sent around 2 minutes before the start of the meeting. And so I'm not even sure I know what's being proposed. I know there were some comments filed by other people which have not been discussed. I gave most of my comments last time, but there were some new ones. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Anyone that submitted comments to go in the text, we did make those changes. If people submitted comments that were just like, I don't agree with this, or I don't like that, those are not things we could resolve, you know, behind the scenes.
Is that the
quickly.
test now? Whoa, is that the test now? Unless it's submitted in writing, it doesn't count?
No, it's not that it doesn't count. I just can't resolve them in less than 24 hours before it comes to the task force meeting. Like, those would require discussions. So when people submit actual edits to text, those are much easier to accept or explain, you know, or clarify or explain why, you know, we wouldn't want to do those. When people just submit, I don't like this, that's a lot more work to make happen.
Not only that, but a lot of these things are arriving on the day of the meeting late. So we're not really having time to go over those things. We may have things we're doing right up to the meeting, and we just don't have time to be going through these things. So I just wanted to mention that having them arrive after 3 p.m. or even 2 p.m. the night of the meeting to go over these things is not helpful.
Yes, I agree. So we took the comments we got and tried to turn them around as fast as we could.
Yeah, if I could jump in, there's at least one area that I have some serious questions about. So I would have to vote no before we're sending it to it. I think we need a little more time and a little more discussion on the stuff.
I've got a question. Would it be possible, if you wanted to send it to staff, would it be possible to send it to staff with those? I mean, are you tending to send it to staff with comments that are unresolved? Like if you had someone bring up an issue that they're not certain about, or I don't know if you can do this or do that, would those just go as comments, or are you talking about only the possible red lines to text changes?
If the if you guys would like to send it with all of the comments resolved and unresolved, then that's what we would do.
Okay.
But I will just say from the people that are writing it, having staff input would be greatly helpful.
Well, I'm uncomfortable with comments coming in for consideration that the task force hasn't had an opportunity to really think through and say, this is something, and you all that are actually crafting that, that chapter, to say that, this doesn't make sense because of this. I don't know. I'm a little hesitant about just sending it to staff with those caveats.
I don't think we haven't sent anything else to staff that would be this unreviewed. I don't know why we would want to send it now.
No.
Okay, but I will just let you guys know there isn't really anything more that Michelle and I can do to it until we meet again. So there's you're gonna get the same thing that you currently have. We have nothing.
And Jennifer, I think, thank you. And I think that maybe what the plan should be then is at the January 11th meeting now, that we would have this on the agenda for final review and consideration at that point, and then for interim approval. We did talk earlier tonight about consensus separate from any particular chapter, the idea of giving everybody at least 5 days to review changes. So let's try to stick to that. I know it's a new policy, but still, I think there seems to be a lot of support for at least waiting until January 11th to discuss it. Anyone have any other thoughts on that process? I do have one other thing.
Walter, if we do that, can we have a deadline for, since we have a lot more time between meetings for this, can we set a deadline for any other comments on the, I think it's the version that Michelle shared right before the meeting, so that in that draft, they can also potentially highlight any of those disagreement points so that we just know they're there. Because I think, as Jennifer and Michelle point out, there are some concepts in here that, again, because this is such a new section, there's a lot of new ground. And so for some of this, staff input is going to be critical to know if it's even really viable in some techniques. So if we set a firm point of comments back to them by this point, and then what comes to us at the next meeting is something that we would talk about those disagreements, and then I ideally go to a vote, hopefully would be I would be optimistic with Jen and Michelle so they can get to staff then.
Yeah, Chris, what would you suggest? What do you think would be a reasonable deadline?
Well, I don't want to speak for those two wonderful ladies who have done most of the drafting on this section, honestly. I gave my comments to them already, so and Michelle was rapid in turning around responses to them. So I know we've got a holiday on our doorstep, but I would hope before the new year everyone could get them comments. But Michelle, Jen, I would be looking for more to you all on what you all would find reasonable, since I'm just your champion in another corner over here.
What about January 4 or 5, which would be a full week before the next meeting?
No, I won't be back. No way. No way.
But
I think before the new year, as Chris suggested, would be more appropriate.
The 4th, I will not be back from my Christmas vacation. I don't want to cut it short.
We're not talking about a meeting, Jan. We're talking about comments back.
Just comments.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think
we could actually do a vote. We could do a vote by email if need be.
Well, let's.
I want to enjoy my Christmas.
I just suggest that we, as a compromise between a couple of proposals, we do something like January 4th. That gets people through the new year.
Okay, let's say January 4th.
Okay, so the first meeting in January is the 11th. So you guys want to give comments by the 4th, and you want us to give you edits back by what, end of day of the 6th?
That's why I set New Year's Eve as the goal, because then that gives a chance.
Let's do New Year's Eve. Let's just do the calendar year. Yeah, good point, Jennifer. Okay. All right. So try to get your comments, if you haven't already. But any new comments to Jennifer and Michelle by the end of the calendar year so that they can turn it around and get it out, get an updated version, if there are any changes to the task force 5 days at least before the January 11th meeting. Okay.
Great.
All right. Okay, there is one more thing, and I hate to bring this up, John Mooney, but I think we might want to set, at the beginning of the January 11th meeting, we might want to maybe have a special public comment session for Rick Hamilton and the Polo Fields, but because we forgot to let them speak.
I'm sorry. Was Rick here?
Yeah, he was.
Oh, Rick, I'm so sorry. And that was on our agenda and.
Yeah.
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 But
I totally agree with you, Walter. Totally agree.
I did think we committed early, though, that we were going to talk to Mark Malcolm through this, he was not here tonight, so you were going to get with Mark Malcolm on all this, right?
That was my bad. It was on the agenda and I skipped it and I apologized in the rush to wrap it up. I totally agree with you, Walter. Polo Fields deserves that opportunity.
Yeah, so let's do that. At least give him a few minutes at the beginning of the next meeting to basically express his concerns. And there may also be, John, as a part of your discussions with folks in the community, an implementation motion or action item or two come out of that. And if they're, after hearing from them, if there are any amendments that task force wants to make to what was already adopted, then, that could be in order as well. But yeah, I think we do need to.
Absolutely, and I really apologize for that. It was on the agenda and, yep.
So, okay.
Was Rick on the call?
He was an attendee, and yeah, he let me know after the vote.
Oh, okay.
He reminded me.
Yikes.
So yeah, Jose or John Mooney, if one of you could reach out to him.
I will do that.
Supervisor, I'm happy to follow up after John reaches out.
Yeah.
Great. So I didn't want to end the meeting on that kind of a down note, but on the other hand, I didn't want to also, basically forget something that where we did miss something. This is just one of those situations where we're trying to do this in a pandemic still, and it's a little different. It's not exactly like we're all in a room and people raise their hands.
Yeah. No, I owe him an apology, so I will call him.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, John. Thank you. Well, that aside, I am very pleased that the transportation chapter has been moved on. So that was a tremendous effort, John, by you and Gary and Bill and everyone else that participated in that. I think that's a really big step forward because in Reston's comprehensive plan and any comprehensive plan, the transportation portions are a critical piece. They're one of the bedrocks in any comprehensive plan. So very nice work for getting through all that. So I think we do have teed up for January several meetings. Just to let you know, we're probably looking at, we do need to move quickly, through the remaining sections. We're probably looking at the fall for Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors public hearings. It's going to get really weird because we are looking, we may have some overlap with the site-specific process. Hopefully that won't happen, but I will be talking with staff to see how there might be some things done concurrently without shortchanging either the task force process or the public engagement process as we move forward. So good progress tonight. Thanks again to everybody who's been participating in this. Thanks for everyone's patience. Jose, thank you for all you're doing. I know everyone on the task force really appreciates it and helping hold all this together. Any final comments or issues before the task force before we? Lynn, I see your real hand.
My real hand. I just wanted to thank you so much for including us in this process, Walter. I know it's been probably like going through a root canal for you, but it really is. I really do appreciate being a part of the process. And I want to wish everyone on the task force a very happy holiday, and looking forward to hopefully a non-COVID or a downslope in 2022.
Thank
Yes,
you so much, Walter. I second the motion about, thank you for allowing us to be part of this wonderful, fascinating process. It's really exciting to see it develop and to be a minor cog in the wheel, as it were. So everybody have a very happy holiday, and best everything good for you all for the new year. And I'll see you on the 11th.
A great way to end, Jan. Thank you. And thank you, Lynn, as well. All right, everybody have a nice holiday. Appreciate everybody's work on this, and please be safe.
Good night, everyone.